Hi everybody! Welcome to the History of New Media Art. I'm your instructor, Jackie Gleisner, and in this lecture we are going to talk about virtual reality and augmented reality. In the last presentation, we looked at interactive exhibitions and artworks. From Leo Villarreal's LED-based light installations to the ominous tone of Can't Help Myself by the Chinese artists Sun Yuan and Pen Yu, we saw how artists are creating works that move, twinkle, and demand viewer participation in some way. Many times, contemporary art is not something that sits statically or hangs on a wall without movement of any kind. More and more contemporary works are engaging with viewers and involving interactivity in some way. Today we are going to explore a heightened form of interactivity, one that uses cutting-edge technology. We're going to start with virtual reality, using this quote by the architect and cultural critic Paul Virilio as a way of introducing the genre. The day when virtual reality becomes more powerful than reality will be the day of the big accident. Mankind never experienced such an extraordinary accident. Now, have we reached this point yet? Well, no. We are not all plugged into VR devices all day long, though many of us are on Zoom too much, but maybe this day will arrive sometime soon. And perhaps not. One thing we know for sure from this course is that it's not possible to predict how technology will evolve and be involved in our lives with great accuracy. Some forms of technology become integral, while others, with seemingly great promise, will fade. Some of you have probably had a VR headset experience, and perhaps even at UNH, but to provide some context, we're going to describe what VR is first. The term virtual reality refers to a three-dimensional experience in which a user puts on a head-mounted display and possibly data gloves and/or a bodysuit with fiber optic cabling to encounter a world that is responsive to a viewer's movements. In VR, the passive act of watching a video becomes immersive and interactive. Before VR, some artists were simulating this experience, such as the Australian-born artist Geoffrey Shaw and the interactive installation The Legible City from 1990. Now, this work is akin to virtual reality, but it uses a computer graphic animation system. As the viewer pedals, she or he encounters virtual recreations of specific cities like Amsterdam or New York. And this work is kind of like a teaser for the extremely immersive VR works that will follow. You can see that the viewer rides a stationary bike through these simulations while computer-generated three-dimensional letters form on the screen. There are a few key ideas to keep in mind as we preview some examples of artworks that use VR. As always, I want to remind you that these are but a few of the many examples out there. And some examples have been selected because they demonstrate early deployments of the technology, and as a result, they might feel a little bit dated to your contemporary eyes. Outside of the world of art, VR is being used and developed in other fields, many other fields, especially the medical field, where virtual surgery is a way for aspiring medical practitioners to hone their skills in a low-stakes way. As is the case with many new forms of technology as they are emerging, VR is still very expensive, and this is part of the reason why it has been slow to reach the art world. But as more and more people are making VR, the more the real world and these virtual worlds are seeming to blend together. And this blending of the real and the virtual becomes literal in augmented reality, which we will also see later in this presentation. This slide shows you the examples we will see in this presentation, which are listed here for your convenience. We're starting with Dan Sandin's The Cave from 1991. By the date, you know that this is a very, very early example of VR. Sandin is the co-director of the Electronic Visualization Laboratory at the University of Illinois at Chicago, and he has been developing video computer tools since the 1970s. He collaborated with a small team of people on this project beginning in the late 1980s, and it takes the form of a cubic room, roughly 3 meters square, that was first exhibited in 1992. The cave was an immersive virtual environment. The user wore glasses to see other playmates inside of the space. And here is a slide showing a person interacting with the cave. But please watch the video linked at the bottom of this slide to learn more about how this project worked and see it in action. Now, the next example comes from Diane Gromala, and it's called Digital Dervish from 1993. Gromala was formerly an art director at Apple Computer. And remember how I mentioned that many applications of VR have roots in the medical field? This work allows users to feel like they are entering the human body, entering specific organs like a heart or a stomach. And she worked with a choreographer and a computer scientist to realize this project. And please watch the short video linked on the bottom of this page for an opportunity to take a peek inside of the body. In the video linked on the previous page, Gromala explains that her first experience with VR was unsettling. And in fact, some people feel really nauseous inside these virtual worlds, while others just feel merely disoriented. Gromala describes how she brought a sense of artistry to her work, saying, "The virtual body is overwritten with text, meditations on pain, eros, and thanatos. Each organ contains another surreal virtual world. Wearing a head-mounted stereoscopic video display, users feel immersed within the body and interact with it. Such interactions include touching the text, which then changes, or flying into an organ, say a heart, to find another surreal world. Three-dimensional sound helps users locate themselves in a surreal virtual space." Next, let's see Somebody, Somewhere, Sometime from 2002 by Maurice Benayoun. This immersive installation uses a VR headset to experience it as well. A viewer wears the VR binoculars to enter an environment of panoramic spheres that show people engaging in different activities at a specific time of day, 7:47 a.m. Here's another view of the project from the artist's website. All the footage is from the same time of day, but the scenery varies radically, painting a wildly different view of life seen from different vantage points. We've seen some of William Latham's earlier works in a previous lecture, and here we are looking at an example of a more recent project that uses VR from 2017. The style and emphasis on a trippy, psychedelic space are consistent in this newer work by Latham. The origins of these VR experiences are in early rave culture and fractal psychedelia. Inside a beguiling world rife with 3D organic forms, the viewer has the ability to change their surroundings and actually mutate the moving forms that envelop him or her. Let's look at one final example of VR. This is Jacob Satterwhite's Domestica from 2017. This VR space combines futuristic landscapes, footage from the news referencing current events, and dance moves. Inside the space, a viewer follows Satterwhite into an underground gay nightclub in Brooklyn. This work was inspired by the artist's mother, a self-taught artist and musician who suffered from schizophrenia. Satterwhite explained, "There are limits with what you can do with objects because objects are embedded with history, politics, and all kinds of anxiety. To put myself in a virtual world is a political gesture, negating all those associations." Through this small sampling, we've seen that many universities and research campuses are at the forefront of VR technology, which lends a particular educational or applied slant to the works, and this is particularly true of the earlier examples we viewed. This is shifting slowly. In the last lecture, we talked about how artists are amplifying interactivity in their works, and with VR, interactivity presents a new viewer experience altogether. Viewers are now users. And this shift has changed the role that museums and galleries are playing as more virtual spaces are created for experiencing art. Lastly, there's not much to be done about this particular project or problem, rather, but it's very awkward to view stills of VR experiences. You will have to use your imagination to translate some of the 2D videos or still images that we have seen into a complete VR experience. Now we are going to shift gears and talk about augmented reality. Augmented reality, or AR, brings digital imagery into real-life spaces through technology. AR conflates the digital and the actual, whereas VR may represent a more complete or total escape from one's present surroundings. And like VR, AR is evolving slowly within the art world because of the skills, time, and money needed to develop it. Think back to some of the clunky or perhaps boring videos that we saw before the Sony Portapak became more accessible to a greater population for comparison. Once again, I've listed the examples we will see today that use AR, and I encourage you to explore and experience these works yourself when possible. The first example is an early one from 2010. In October of that year, an artistic collective called Manifest AR launched a project titled We Are in the MoMA. It was a DIY, unofficial digital exhibition that took place in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. The work relied on the Layer application for AR, which people could download and use on their smartphones. Manifest AR inserted a series of digital artworks that were visible using this app as one navigated MoMA's gallery space. Some works in the AR experience replaced others that were on display within the physical space. Please make sure that you check out the videos on this link titled Project Documentation. And the group also wrote a manifesto echoing the urgency of this format of writing in a piece that stated, "Standing firmly in the real, we expand the influence of the virtual, integrating and mapping it onto the world around us. Objects, banal byproducts, ghost imagery, and radical events will coexist in our private homes and in our public spaces." Next up is Olafur Eliasson's Wunderkammer, an AR artwork presented by Acute Art, which is an app that can be downloaded in the App Store and Google Play. The press release for this project states, "Wunderkammer is an intriguing collection of natural elements, small artworks, and experiments from the artist's studio rendered in augmented reality. These AR collectibles meld the well-known with startling movement and unexpected actions, from a glowing sun and a shimmering rainbow to a cloud that emits rain. Some evoke contemplation, while others are humorous. Presented at a time where movement and physical togetherness are restricted, Wunderkammer invites you to sculpt your immediate environment by adding objects and atmospheres to your personal space. In the first collection of objects to be released, you will additionally find a friendly-looking puffin, a floating compass that always returns to true north, an insect, and a little sun, Eliasson's solar-powered lantern that can be charged by the AR sun. As this project evolves, Eliasson will add more ephemeral phenomenon and artistic experiments to the collection. Please click the link to see video documentation for some of these ephemera and consider downloading the app. On this free app, you can also find other examples of AR projects by different artists. And finally, we are going to discuss a project that has not yet launched, one that considers our nation's evolving conversation surrounding monuments. Over the past several years, we have been thinking about monuments who should be honored, and which monuments should be taken down. This text is from the website for Monument Lab announcing their new AR project. Monument Labs Overtime is a public art and technology platform designed to allow users to dig deeper into the living history of a city. Through a free, downloadable, augmented reality app, Overtime offers educational, self-guided tours of a public space by unearthing the multiple layers of history, meaning, and interpretation of that site through a personal smart device. Led by a virtual tour guide, the app opens an imagined outdoor art and history museum so that users can access histories of an important street or intersection, explore stories and memories, and visualize new ways to access and share their own perspectives and knowledge of that site. It's not available yet, but again, I encourage you all to get the app once it is launched officially. So through these three examples, we've seen some of the ways that AR can function within the art world. AR can insert work into unexpected or potentially unwelcome spaces, and this can disrupt the sense of authority that some museums or other spaces may exert. AR works can unite audiences within a digital realm when actual togetherness is not possible or unlikely. And lastly, AR can be used to expand or question one's understanding of a specific environment through its added context. That is it for this lecture. Thank you as always for joining me today as we navigated these swiftly changing virtual worlds. And next class, we are going to take a closer look at artificial intelligence and its connection to the art world. Thanks again. See you soon.